right, what's up everybody? This is Don Ward, Third Creative, thirdcreative.com, and I'm excited to talk to you about another new template, Rise Multi-Sport. This template will continue to have 9 files instead of the 6. You're going to continue to get your 3 vertical files that we see over here, 1x2, 2x3, 4x5. Going to get 5 horizontal files, which is also 1x2, 2x3, 4x5. But you also get your 1x3 panoramic, and then of course your memory mate, which is also a 4x5. And we're going to continue to keep this button file included. So I'm going to walk you through the ins and outs of this template, show you how all the layers work, maybe show you some things that you wouldn't have found otherwise, and ultimately just help you get the most out of this template and of course make some money with it. So let's jump right in. We'll start off with the 2x3 vertical file. Basically everything that we talk about in this file is going to apply to all of the other files. There are a couple files that I'm going to talk about towards the end. The memory mate, I'll demonstrate again how we put that together, and we'll pull up the button file as well. Not much to talk about there, pretty simple, but we'll touch on a few things that you'll see in those files that you're not going to see in this file that we're working with. So let's jump in. As always, I like to start at the very bottom. We're going to go down to this background layers, including background text layer. So I put that there because I want everybody to know that this repeating text layer here, that is going to be found in this background folder. But let's open it up and let's just go all the way to the bottom and start from there. Very bottom layer is background color, pretty self-explanatory. Double click in this little icon here and you can control your background color. Very easy, very straightforward. Next 2 layers are our corners. So we've got our top left and we got our top right. So you can see these curved corners that I have here. You can turn them off if you like that look. But if you want to change the color, real simple, double click the color overlay. We'll click in this box and you can do whatever you want. Keeping it moving. We've got this sidelines left, change color. So it's referring to these sidelines here. I'm going to drag this over and show you it's actually this cluster of upward arrows. There's several of those that you'll see in the design, and that's what kind of inspired the name Rise. A lot of you may also be familiar with another Rise, which, being honest, probably gave me some inspiration as well. But let's put those back. If you want to change those colors, we're going to just double click here and click here, and it's all the same. You can set that up. Pretty simple. Arrows behind subject, so that's referring to this one. In this case, I've got it pretty subtle. Double click the color overlay. You can make it really bold. You can make it really subtle. You can go a lot of different directions with it. We'll cancel out of that. Alright, so here we have this next layer is our repeating text in background. Once I work my way up, we're going to talk about this top layer, text layer, and then this right here. But they're all kind of tied together, so we'll come back to that. Next we have our circle bottom right, so that's referring to this circular shape made up of these dots. It's all the same color overlays, so you can change the colors on these. Let's see here, we have our center circle. So this is this more dominant circle shape that we have here. It's different. Same way, double click color overlay and you can change the color. You can also move this around if you want to. You can scale it up, scale it down, move it around. And then we have our circle top left, so same as the bottom right. You can control the color here. And let's see. Okay, here we have vertical stripe top right change color. So that's referring to this little corner accent that I have set up here. It is also a color overlay, so it's very easy to change these colors. And then right above it we have these up arrows top right. So same thing, you can change the colors by double clicking on the color overlay and clicking in this box here and just select the color that you need. It's all very simple, very easy. So that's a quick walkthrough of the background. Now let's keep that background open and also open this next folder, which is the upper text layers. So I'm going to explain how this works. It might throw some people for a loop if they're not used to this, but this very top layer here, where we have the solid text, is set up a little differently. It is a smart object that you will need to open to edit, which is very easy, and I'll demonstrate it. It is set up this way because I don't want you to have to go into each text layer and type in the same text over and over. So by setting it up as a smart layer, we can double click this little icon here. It's going to open up. You can double click in your text box here and you can change it to anything that you want. So let's actually demonstrate this. Once you've changed it, hit the check mark to commit it. We are going to X out of it. Always be sure and save, otherwise your changes will not update in the template. Alright, so now you can see it's all updated for us. So I'm going to take it a little step further and kind of show you. Now we have all this negative space. So you can leave it like that, but me personally, I'd want to fill this space up a little bit more. So the way that we'll do that is leaving this layer highlighted, and we're going to scroll down and we're going to come to this repeating text and background layer. Now what I want to do is hit this little chain link to unlock the layer mask. Now I'm going to hold down Command on a Mac. I believe it's, what is it, Control on a PC, but I'm going to click out here, and what this does is it selects both of them together. Now I'm using my move tool, so you got to make sure you have that selected, but it's going to give you this wraparound constraint box. And so now I can click on one of these anchor points and I can scale it up and I can move it in position. I'm going to scale it all the way up to fill the space that I want, and then I'm going to bring it down and I'm going to place it where I want. Once you have it how you like it, you can hit commit. Now the reason that I unlinked the layer mask is because now I want to go ahead and click on the layer mask to select it. Now if you look here, you can see that the word Raiders is cut off right in the middle, and so we don't want that. Now by selecting this layer mask the way that I did, we can click on an anchor point and then see here, just drag it up. In fact, I can commit that and I can continue to use my arrow up. Or maybe you want the next one to show. There's several in there, so it gives you some room to work with. But you can place this layer mask at a level that shows and cuts off exactly where you want it. And once you have it, commit it. You can link it back now if you want to. But hopefully all that makes sense. It's pretty cool. Let's go back up here. Now we have our sport. So sport, pretty self-explanatory. It's over here on the right-hand side. So with sport, the character panel, you can control the color here. Obviously, double click, you can change it. The kerneling is set to -30. You can change that back to 0 or to anything that you want. If you want the spacing to be a little bit wider, we can undo that. Let's see. Pretty simple. We have this layer below it, vertical box behind sport name, optional. And the reason that it's optional is because you can turn it off. Now, turning it off might muddy things up right in here, and that was the reason that I put it in there. You really can't even tell that it's there because the way I have it set up, if you open this up, it's at a shade of white that pretty much matches, well, it does match the background color. And so you can set that to the same color code. If you come all the way down and open this up, it's automatically highlighted. I hit Command or Control C and you copy. In this case it's true white, so you don't, unless you have something unique, you can just click on this top left corner, it would be the same. But if you copy that and then you come up here and you paste it on this color overlay, you'll get an exact match and it will blend in. You won't really know that it's there other than the fact that it will cover up this circle and make this more legible, less busy. So another option you have is to go ahead and make this color, something that's contrasting. You could do a gray or, whatever. But that is another option if you like that look. Something else to explain, let's cancel that. Actually, let's go ahead and leave that gray. So another option that you have, there's lots of options, I'm going to try to cover them all, is that if you type something, let's say you type something longer, this is set up to cover, volleyball, but let's say we put Raider volleyball. Alright, so now that's obviously way bigger. So what I would do, click in this corner, I'm going to hold shift to keep it right in place, and I'm going to drag it down, I don't know, wherever you want it. Okay, so now that box doesn't cover the entire area. So if you select this layer with your move tool, we'll zoom in just a little bit, click on one of these anchor points. Now if you hold shift, click and drag the anchor point down, you can scale this box how you like it. You can make it taller, shorter, you can make it wider. We'll commit that, and you can line it up, or you can select the text and line it up how you like. So that is an option. And then some of my sample images, if you go on the website or any of the social media, you'll see that at least one of them I have set up like that where you can see it. So let's back up and get it back how we had it, because I want to show you yet another option. So another option that you have, and you can see in the examples, is you can put the sport name here. So let's say we put volleyball. Alright, remember we're going to commit that, we're going to close out, and we're always going to save. Alright, so now it's taking a minute. There we go. So now we got to fix that, but we remember how to do that. It's not difficult at all. Select everything. I'm going to hold down the Option to keep it centered here. I've got it pretty much, maybe a little bit smaller. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to drag it straight up. Now, actually, I think what we want to do is take up more space, and you'll see why. Let's drag that down. Now I'm going to be a lot more particular ordinarily, but for the purpose of this, just to keep things moving, I'm just going to leave it right there. So now an option that you have is to come back up here to your sport, go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. So we want to get this horizontal. Now we can bring it up here, and I've got a shortcut that will center this, but there we go. Just try to line it up Now we can change the color, and maybe we'll try to match that green. Now we don't want to say volleyball, so let's get it to say our mascot. So now we've got Raider Volleyball. Now you can scale this up. I'm using the character panel here. You can always click and drag in and out however you want. But once you get it like you have it, you center it up how you want it, you have another option there. And there's lots of things you can do. I'm kind of just going off into left field, but you know, now that you have the space, you could scale this down and you could bring it out further. Let's see, bring this up. And also, now that we've moved the sport, we would probably want to go ahead and turn this off, because that looks kind of strange. But anyways, I think you get the idea. I just wanted to kind of demonstrate a few different options that you have. Let's see what point we can get back to how it was. I know what we can do. Go back to open. That's a good way to get it back to the original. All right, so hopefully all of that makes sense. Gives you some options to work with. Let's keep going. Now we have lower text layers. These are pretty simple. So we've got a vertical subtext. In this case, let's zoom in. I've got it set as varsity. You can have it say senior, and you can turn that off and change things up. You can put whatever you want in there. You can put the year. You could do a lot of things, but it's just a text layer, so you can change your color in the character panel, and always you can double click in here, and once you do that, you'll get this color option here. So pretty simple. Now we've got the vertical stripe, so it's referring to this behind the subtext. You can it's actually, you can move it up and down, so if you want it higher or shorter, you got a little bit of room to work with. You can see how it extends. But changing the color is very simple. Click here, click on the color overlay, and get the idea. So first name, very simple. It's all very simple. It's all just text layers. Color controls are all set up the same way. We've got class, so you can change this to anything. You could change it to position. You could do a lot of things. You've got your year. You've got jersey number. We'll talk about jersey number real quick. With the jersey number, there's a few ways that you can do it. Now I've got it set to white because I want just the stroke outline, to show. But you can place this anywhere you want. Now it gets a little bit lost there, but if you scale it up, you start to see, you've got options there. But what we can do is change the color to maybe this green. That's a little dark. We'll bring it up. You can turn the stroke off. You can scale it back, down, have it up here. You can come in and you can turn the stroke back on. If you double click stroke, you use this color box and you can change the color of the stroke. You can control the size here with a slider or by entering a number here. But that's how that works. Very simple, very straightforward. You can move everything around, you can scale it, you can make it work with what you have going on. Let's get back to the original state again. There we go. All right, so paper texture overlay, pretty straightforward. It's red because you really need to probably leave it alone. You got a little bit of room to work with. You can scale it up, scale it down. You could, rotate it or transpose it if you want it, these creases to show in a different way. Possibly one example that you might make a change to that is if you go with something really dark. You still want the folds to show, but you know it's kind of dark, and now it makes these folds like really bold. So let's go right here. Now I know this may not be how I would ordinarily set this up, but just to demonstrate, if you come in here and you turn on these curves, you can see that what I've done is I've increased the whites and the darks drastically. So if you want that to be less subtle, if you're using a dark, you can click on this arrow if it'll cooperate, and you can bring it way back to just the normal, and that will kind of make it a lot more subtle. And you can even bring this back to normal, and it won't be, well, that may be too much. You can bring it where you like it. But that is a way, and you could even bring this up if you want to continue to reduce these darks and get less contrast. But that is a way that you can modify the contrast of these folds. I think it's the way I had it set looks really good with the lighter colors, but if you go really dark, it may not look exactly the way you want. It might be a little too contrasty, and so you can come in and adjust that. All right, so let's close that up. Last thing we have here is our athlete subject image. Very simple. It's got a drop shadow attached to it, and you can double click there. You can play with the opacity of it. You can make it more prominent. You can change the distance here and the size here if you just want a different look. I went ahead and set it, you know, to something that I thought would generally be a, you know, a good setting to have it at, but you can adjust that if you want to. But pretty simple. You're going to drop your subject images in here. You're going to scale and position them the way that you want them. I have a layer mask that is attached. It is unlinked because I want you to have the ability, using your move tool, to select it, and you can kind of move it around, up and down. Now obviously if you go too far up, you start to lose it, but if that ends up being the case and you want that high, click on one of these anchor points, hold shift, and you can drag it down. It does change it just a little bit, but you know, you've got some leeway there. Something you can do is go more to angle, you know, do some rotating, but primarily I've got it set up to allow room here for your name, so most cases I don't think you'll need to adjust that. You can turn it off if you hold shift and click here. It goes away, but then, you know, you lose your space to work with as far as all of your text information. But that is it. Quick run through. So hope all that makes sense. Shoot some questions to me if you still have any. But before we wrap things up, I'm going to jump over to the memory mate and the button. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now we have our memory mate file pulled up, and if you have used any of my more recent templates, you're probably already familiar with this setup. But in order for you to set up the memory mate file, you first need to build your team image using the 4x5 horizontal. So I've got that over here, and I've got it just to kind of show you its final state. Let's say you've set it all up, you've built your team, you're good to go. So you obviously save this as its own PSD file, but you also would go ahead and save it as a JPEG. So you can go File, Save As, save it where you want it. I've already got it saved, so we're not going to do that. So once you've got this team image made and it's saved, it's good to go. You open your memory mate, customize the colors, get everything set up, but now it's time to insert your team image. So if you come over here to Insert Team Image here, open this up and select this sample image. Now you can go to your folder system or Finder, since I'm using Mac. Find the image that you saved. Well, we don't want that, and just drag and drop it. So now it's going to make it a smart object. So you can go ahead and click and drag to scale it as big as you want it. Position it, and I'm just kind of going through this quickly. But get it how you want it. We'll go ahead and commit. You can turn this off, and in fact, you're not going to be using it. You can also delete it. And then, of course, always save it under its own unique file name. It has a drop shadow turned on. It also has a stroke. So if you want to create some, some more contrast between your team image and the background, you can turn that stroke on, of course. Double-click the stroke. You can change the color. And as always with a shadow, a drop shadow, you can open it up and you can adjust the opacity, distance, size, etc. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Insert your subject sample images here, and everything else is just like just like the vertical that we went over. So that's the memory mate. Last thing to talk about, it's going to be our button. So let me get that pulled up. All right, so we have our button file pulled up, and not a whole lot to talk about here because the actual layers are pretty much set up just like the vertical is. So it does not have the repeating background text. I mean, you can always drag that over if you want that, but I figure buttons are pretty small and we don't want to get them too jumbled, too busy. So I set this up the way that I thought it would look good, and I felt that leaving the background text out was best, and I just left it with the athlete information, their first name, last name, year, their class. You can change that up however you want to, but really what I want to talk about is the bleed guides. So they're turned on by default, and you certainly want to turn these off before you save your button image. So when you turn it off, it gives you a 1x1 square image. This could be handy for social media. I know Instagram likes the 1x1 square images, so that it could be used for something other than a button, but just be sure to turn those bleed guides off before you save your final button image. The bleed guides basically will represent, this is going to be your no man's land cutoff. This isn't going to show. This lighter gray section is basically potentially going to show, or is going to be, obviously the further away it gets, the less likely it is that it's going to show, but this is going to be your wraparound area. Anything inside this circle should show. So depending on the source that you use for your buttons, there might be slight variance. So really just try to keep anything important out of the gray zone, and you should be okay. And that's it. So we kind of zipped through that pretty quick. I'm really excited about this one. I'm excited about the timing. It's fall sports when this thing is coming out, and I know everybody's super busy, so I'm hoping you can put this thing to use. As always, if you have questions, reach out to me. You can hit me up, just direct email, don@thirdcreative.com, or you can go to thirdcreative.com and use the contact option. You can direct message me through any of the social media platforms. I always get back to you as quickly as I can. But again, that is all I have this time around. It's time for me to jump into my next design. So until next time, see ya.